Welcome to the Bold in Belief podcast, the official podcast of the National Association of Christian Patriot Educators. My name is Mike Cunningham with Wes Morris.
How's it going, everyone?
We are happy to be here. Our guest tonight, Mr. Chris Brown. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Well, now that we got
Doing
all the
great.
introductions out of the way, we can jump right into it, right? I'm really excited tonight. Okay, not that I don't say it to every one of them, but I'm excited because I've known Chris for a moment now, and really unique guy. Um, Chris is just to break it all down. He's an athlete, which is we love sports, and he's an artist. You know what a rare combination, right? A really good artist. You don't just doodle. I've seen some of your work, and I see a little painting in the background. That's awesome. But that's not all you are. You know, there's more layers to Mr. Brown. You're an author, you're an educator, you're a
Yeah.
Christian, you're a father, you're a coach, you're a husband. Do you even have permission right now to be doing this? Somebody's got to let you go for a second, right?
From my
Probably not.
from my wife.
Correct.
The wife's the boss, so yeah.
And I'm going to pick on you a little bit, not pick on you, but ask you a little bit. But your artwork is really cool. I've seen several pieces, and in you're very talented in all different areas. But you do a lot of sports memorabilia and really cool stuff, and then also some Christian artwork that's just beautiful. Man, really appreciate it. I know you shared a lot with us, and it's really great. Through all your
Thank you.
talents. Well, you're very welcome. Through all your talents, I think it's pretty amazing that you've met some total rock stars, from Will Clark, a lot of sports guys, Eli Manning, Tom Osborne. So you're close
Yeah.
friends or close to William Lee Martin, Larry the Cable Guy. Like it's like all sorts of different guys and people that you've met, and I'm just, man, you're my hero. I'm like a little kid that looks up to the athlete and the artist, but you're incredibly talented, and I can't appreciate you enough for hanging out with us for a second and talking about what we're doing. And
Oh, thanks for yeah.
oh, it's a pleasure. The main thing is, hey, we're starting this association. Thank you for being a member. As of right now, what do you think? What's your stance on what we're trying to accomplish here?
Well, I think it's good for people to know they have an organization that ties directly into their faith and knows that they have somebody in their corner. I mean, that's kind of the big thing right now, is making sure that everybody understands that there are like-minded people still, and that we all have each other's backs, and the more we can bond together in this organization and share with each other, whether it be struggles or achievements or those kind of things, and then we're going to be stronger because of that. So I think it's definitely on the right track with what we're needing right now, as far as Christian educators or just Christians in general.
Mm. I love what you said. We're talking earlier that all these awesome people that you met through your faith, through your talents, through your artwork, and even their accomplishments. They gave all of their accomplishments, number one, to God. So I thought that was powerful.
It is. It's I've been doing this. Well, I've been the Hall of Fame artist for what, 17 years now, and so I've done, I don't know, somewhere up around almost 200 portraits for them, and so I also got to listen to their induction speeches, which is a lot of speeches. But being a sports person myself, I'm always very tuned in, and so I I it's not a small coincidence at all that almost every single one of them is thanking God almost first thing.
Mm.
Um, and I think what's really good now is people are starting to understand that it's okay to come out and not just thank God, but just talk about that journey for them and let people know that I couldn't have done any of this without God in my life, and and they know that He's the whole reason. So, but I just think it's cool that people are finally starting to realize that it's okay to come out and say who you are. It's kind of and it's kind of interesting how all of a sudden we felt like we couldn't openly say that we were Christians
Mm.
and that we believe in that because you would get attacked. Um, it's just weird to think that because obviously 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't the case. So it's been a really fast flip, I think. You go in a history standpoint, that's a really fast flip in the way people view things in the public. So I think people are starting to realize now, though, that it's important to get out and say, um, to tell people about their faith and how Jesus and how God has worked in their lives um, and continues to. So
There's no reason to be shy or quiet or silent. It should be accepted. That's all. That's how I feel, right?
right,
Yeah, I think that's a big part of what the NACPE really wants to kind of start in the community of education is the ability for people to feel comfortable just sharing their faith. There's plenty of districts around Texas where people might not be comfortable sharing that they're a Christian, whereas like other groups are really proud to say what they're all about. That's what the whole thing's about. It's just getting more comfortable with it, letting other educators know that, hey, it's okay to express your faith, wear a cross necklace to school, that sort of thing. So it's awesome just to have more people on board for sure.
yeah. That well, I can tell you too. I think it was even last year where a coach got fired for praying in front of the in front of his team. So um, that's something that I can't quite wrap my brain around it on why somebody would be so upset. I mean, I know what both sides are saying. Don't get me wrong, but with people of faith, I think what other people don't understand is that we also have something called hope. And so us in education, we see that the fact that a lot of kids, probably more and more than when we first started in teaching and
Mm.
administration, that most of them are losing hope and they're losing it early. And I mean, you see elementary kids now already doing things that we would have thought were completely out of control as a high school kid, and you're seeing it in elementary school. And so they're losing that hope earlier and earlier, and we know why. They're not going to church. There's no God in the house. There's no Bible to read. And so I think that has a lot to do with that.
Yeah,
And
that's actually a really good point.
the school year's ending. And if you don't need Jesus right now, you, you've got a great district you're working for towards the end, and all the celebrations and all the chaos, and everybody's super busy. So you're right, man. What a great time to to show to pray and make sure God's behind you, right? Oh
Yeah,
man,
for sure.
what do you feel like you struggle the most that you see that over the years that you've educated? What the struggles in the classroom that you see, what kids are going through, and what they're lacking?
Oh man. So I've been teaching 25 years, all in the art room. I would say that the art room's a little bit different than most classes, simply because it's more. I mean, I don't want to put this the wrong way, but there's a little bit more play, right? So each
Mhm.
kid, I mean, you should be enjoying what you're doing. So there's probably a little bit more talking and free sharing ideas and those kind of things. So, gosh, the things I've seen and heard and continue to hear, a lot of it's heartbreaking. Um, you understand why kids are the way that they are because of what they deal with at home, or what they're lacking at home. A lot of times it's lacking a parent or lacking both parents. Um, and I think if unless you've gone through something like that, it's that's life changing. And I wish more parents would understand that too. Is what you're doing in your own personal life in front of your kids is literally affecting the rest of their lives. And you might think there's nothing to it, but what they see is That's not going on in my friend's household. That's not going on in that household. But it's going on in my household. There must be something wrong. And so we know as Christian teachers, we know what the answer is. But unfortunately, there's a separation of church and state. And
Correct.
so I know what I need to tell them. I know what the answer is. I know where to lead them.
Hmm.
But obviously, that's not something I'm allowed to do if I want to keep teaching. So obviously, that's always going to be the biggest struggle. And I think it's not going to be that long before I retire. And I think I'm just going to go hog wild after that. Find a way to get into schools and find a way to get that message across um, without having to worry about being fired, because I won't be employed by then. So um, it's again, it's just interesting how times have changed, because it used to be the other way around, where that was in schools, and
Yeah.
if you did some of these other things, that was the bad thing. And now it's the opposite, where some things are allowed, you know, and God's not allowed. So you are seeing some changes. We have the Ten Commandments back in our rooms. Louisiana tried to do that too, and they got it reversed, and so they had to take theirs down. But Texas is still holding strong on that. So um, sometimes some people might think that that's not a big deal, but it's always there. And so you talk about that planting that seed, and it's always there. And if that one kid that needs to see it needs to read that one line, um, sometimes that's all it takes, and that's what plants the seed. So I'm still happy that mine's still hanging up.
I, I
I think
hope
you brought up a
members
really good
go
point.
ahead.
Well, yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say earlier when you brought up kids are losing hope, or you're seeing that a lot more often now. How, as a Christian in your personal life, like how can you bring that into the classroom to kind of give kids that hope without, directly telling them? Like, how can you do that as an educator?
Without telling them exactly what they really truly need.
Yeah, like how? Yeah,
Well, for me personally, I mean, we all have our own journey. When I don't think, probably less and less now are coming to God at an early age and living that clean life. Of course, we all know the struggles with that too. But so my parents divorced when I was 5, right? And so that was instant turmoil for me. I have an older brother and a younger sister, and so now it's you got the broken home, dad's out of the picture, and so that alone, we weren't going to church. We were just surviving. Little did we know, or little did my mom my mom know, I was a little kid, but church is where we should have been, and that's where we would have gotten the help, and we could have gotten on our knees, and we could have had people praying for us, um, instead of just being out on our own trying to survive. So I just you kind of give your testimony without, in a school setting, you try to give your testimony without getting to the end. I was here. These are the struggles you're going to go through. There's a light. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. You want to say it's God, but it's, hey, this is going to get better. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. This is not in the plan. You know what I'm saying? Like, you
Yeah.
might see this is your story, but this is just a little chapter. And unfortunately, they don't know how to turn that page and get to the next chapter that's going to be better. Right now, they're stuck in that scary part of the book. And so you just try to let them know that, hey, at the end of the story, it's much much better. And so that if you can ever get to a chance that hopefully they start to hear the same message somewhere else, but get to hear the end, then that's all we can really kind of hope for in a school setting. But it goes back to that big challenge. Like, how do you really tell them what they need to hear without telling them exactly what they need to hear?
I think you described it pretty well. It's just kind of sharing your own personal experience and how you like conduct yourself. I think how you described it is pretty perfect. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I, I think Chris, you're like the perfect example of members that we need, and and not that You're different, but I think there's many of us out there. So we
I've
need
accepted
to.
my difference a long time ago.
We're, well, I'm not saying you're a dime a dozen, but I'm saying there's so many of us out there that can continue to encourage in the direction that so many need. But I feel like some are shy because, like you said earlier, districts that don't really support that or encourage that, they kind of it's free will, just let them do whatever. That's not what they need. They need some guidance, and I think the type of educators that districts need to seek out are what are you or guys like you and gals like you know that are that know where they need to go, but can't just tell them, I mean, you don't tell them the answer of the question on the test. You let them work and give them boundaries, and let them kind of figure it out their own, but give them some, the bowling, the bumper, the guide rails type stuff. I want the
Yeah.
NACP to continue on, to carry on, because you're right. I'm going to retire one of these days. Who knows, right? I want this to continue on and carry on and grow. There are many associations out there that started really small, and they blossom into pretty powerful forces. And I think what we're doing has a meaning that's everlasting. You said plant a seed. Plant a seed for a tree you're never going to sit in the shade on. Saw that. I loved it. It's hard.
Well, and you had talked off camera too about the coaching associations and those things.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of those guys are in positions, well, kind of like we are, where they're in a position where they're really influencing the way the kind of people that these athletes are going to go on to be.
Mm,
We can all think back to that coach that we had. We can probably think of some bad ones too, but we always think of that one, that this was the guy that or girl that made me realize I could be something
mhm.
more than what I thought. Um, so just kind of while we were talking, I was just thinking, I was like, well, this organization needs a booth at the coaches association meeting. When everybody else is out, pandering books, we can give them something good to join.
We are taking donations and support every second of the day. If you are listening and you want to support us, and we need the help, all the help we can get, we'd love to do that. Love to get out in front and just try to recruit some members and carry the word.
Absolutely.
What else you got, Wes? We're gonna grill him some more.
Well, what advice would you give other teachers who are Christians working in today's classrooms that are maybe they don't really know how to navigate the current situation that we all find ourselves in?
Well, I mean, obviously, public school is a different beast than private school. Um, if it's something that you're how do I say this? If you're trying to get in a situation where you can just openly share the word of God, then you need to go to a Christian private school and teach,
Hmm.
obviously. But at the same time, I mean, we all have our opinions about who's at those schools. Um, Jesus wasn't going into the rich areas and preaching to them. He was going into the slums and into the dirt and going to the people who needed it. All we hear in the news now is bashing public schools, bashing education, um, and it's the strong Christian teachers is what we actually need in the public schools. So I would say going into it, be strong in your faith. Never let that fade. Have a strong support group that you can always turn to when things get hard, because they will. Um, it's not any different than the other job. There's ups and downs. Probably in education, there's ups and downs every 45 minutes, and so you're dealing with a lot of different people that are all dealing with something. Um, and we've seen kids where it's a swing in 10 minutes. Like it's um, not that they're all just chemically imbalanced, but it's just one of those things where they're highly affected now by everything that happens around them. And so you could be teaching, but you got to remember you got 25 to 30 kids in there that are all thinking their own thoughts, doing their own thing, and dealing with other things. And so, um, find a way to connect to them personally first, as far let them know that you're not just standing up in front of them telling them what to do, but you care about them. If you don't care about kids, don't teach. I mean, that's the bottom line. If you're doing it for vacation time, uh, you're in it for the wrong reasons. Because I can tell you, I can assure you, just because you're not at the school doesn't mean your brain's shut off and you're suddenly not a teacher. You spend all summer planning what you're going to do. You spend all summer thinking about everything else. So because you care, and it's just
Mm.
like anything else that you do. If you really, really, truly care about it and you want to be good at it, then you do it all the time. It's not oh, it's summertime. I'm hitting the pool. I'm done. I'm not going to think about it. You're lying to yourself, first off. And you see people get into that first year. We always say if you can make it through the first year, you're fine. But a lot of them don't. And it's that realization that you're dealing with however many souls that you have in your room, and they're all individuals and they're all dealing with something. And sometimes they band together and sometimes it's a wacky, wacky world. But that's just sometimes that's why you teach, because you want to affect other people and you want to bring something positive to them. So I'll just circle right back around. We need Christian teachers in the classroom, giving them a positive influence, because all they're seeing is teachers being arrested for this or arrested for that, or inappropriate this, inappropriate that. You're not seeing on the news, hey, look at all these great teachers doing all these great things, even though 99% of the teachers are. But that's not news. That doesn't make news.
Mm.
So they're going to focus on the bad ones, and then everybody's going to think that's the way teachers are now, when that's not true. So the bottom line is, now you just hear about every single one of them because of the internet and everything else, as opposed to before, like, you had to read about it. So, the world's not worse. We just know about it more.
So we're calling on all the common sense educators, the ones that are not in the news. That's who that's who we're calling on, that
Yeah.
are
Yeah,
there
yeah,
for
yeah.
kids, and they're the help. Your story's awesome. Got a little similar story, and I'm sure so many other kids do. And there was that teacher or that coach or that administrator that said something to me, and in regards of the right way and following Jesus and learning, and especially as a young teacher and coach, had something that would pop that in my mind. And boy, I sure wish I would have listened a long time ago. Like, I don't know, maybe when I was in high school, or maybe when I was in college, or maybe when I was a fresh young teacher. That but that's. But what if I had never heard that? Yeah, sure. If I was in
Right.
private school, you would get that more often, like you said. But that's not me. I grew up in public schools. That I had some great teachers. I had a great experience. I got a great education, and it was because I had some solid people. And I know those solid teachers that I had back then, they would join and they'd be a part of this, and they'd be like, "Yeah, it's a no brainer. Uh, we're here to help kids. We can guide them the best way we can." And it is chaotic. It is tough. There's like you said, 25, 30, sometimes 35 kids in a classroom. You don't know
Yeah.
what all they're going through, and that's what the good ones do, is they share those stories. They learn more, they build relationships, and they help guide them down this wacky way, like you said, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't have all the answers either, for as far as, maneuvering through a single school day. You just kind of, you have a plan, and usually that's torn up at some point, and you write a new plan because of the way the day's going. I mean, it's we know what we have to accomplish, and so we do that. But then you also, I don't know how many years into teaching, but I realized that that almost is a little bit secondary. Like, I need to affect their lives in a positive way. That, I heard somebody say that they don't remember anything somebody taught, but they remember how nice they were to them and how they
Hmm.
acted like they cared.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously we know the importance of education, and I'm not throwing that aside. I'm just saying, anybody who listens to this, I promise you remember that teacher that was just really nice to you and took time to care about you, as opposed to just making sure you get your homework in.
Amen. All right,
Yeah, we
Chris.
could go on and on.
Final question for you tonight, sir. I appreciate you again. Mr. Brown, you have an opportunity. You got a genie bottle. You can rub that bottle, and you can change one thing only about education in the U.S. right now. It'll change tomorrow. What would be that one thing that you think you would change for every student uh, in the country?
That's easy. Well, there's a few things we could do, but I think the first and foremost is put prayer back in school. I think that's the way to go. That's opening up that door. So I think if we get back to praying in schools, and you know people start kids learn to handle their own problems, as opposed to being stressed every time the wind changes.
Well,
The knowing where to turn, knowing that I have a stronger power that has already decided how my life is going to go. I don't have to really worry about it that much. I think that would take a lot of this stress and anxiety out of all these kids.
faith versus fear, huh?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, anything else, Wes?
I mean, I feel like we could just talk on and on, honestly. I have so many great ideas and stuff to share, but I mean, this might be our longest podcast, but I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
get
about,
going. I can't shut up sometimes.
I mean, you have so much good stuff to say. I mean, you brought up a lot of good points. I think the bringing the prayer back into school, that's a really good idea too. Um, I think one of the most important things you said is just, making that positive impact on kids. And I think that's why we're all in education, really, at the end of the day. And it's not about the summer vacations, even though I'm definitely looking forward to it coming up. But yeah, it's about just making a good positive impact on kids and, showing your Christian self without, opening up your Bible in the classroom. And yeah, that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah. Well, and to add on what you just said too, without making this too much longer, I remember, I had a little. I went to church a good bit when I was in middle school and those kind of things, but I was going. My brother and I would go on our own. My parents never went, and I kind of fell away from it a little bit. Went through
Mm.
college, and then I met a friend of mine named Fred Gunfort, and I first student taught under him. Um, and so I met him in the gym, worked out to where I was able to student teach under him. He was a middle school art teacher, and I just kind of kept watching him, and I was just like, man, I don't know what it is about that guy, but he's always positive, he's always happy. I know he's dealing with some things because he's
Mm.
he's openly talked about that, but he's just different. And then it was, what is it different? Why is he different? And then I got to know him even more, and it was at the core just because he was a Christian and he had God in his life and he had turned everything over to him, and so the worry was gone. And so then he was just kind of free and easy to, hey, I don't have this is going to pass, this is going to pass. God's got this.
Mm.
I can just take my foot off the gas. It's not something I need to worry about. And so to this day he's one of my best friends, and that was 26 years ago. And so but that's, like you said, though, it's showing yourself without coming out and saying who it is. They see that. They see a God-centered life, um, with how you're acting and how you're being, and just, I think Christians at their core come off differently than people who are not Christian.
Exactly. Yeah.
Man, love it, Chris. Love you, man. I appreciate you coming and sharing with us and hanging out with us for a second. This has been cool, really neat. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Don't forget to follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook. We got our YouTube. It's like 80% done. We'll have that posted and everything. So appreciate you again. Thank y'all very much. And y'all have a good night.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.